Evening, guys. Hope everyone's well. Sorry, got a few things running. Hi, Tony, how you doing, mate? You right? There's a few seconds till we get going. Hi, Nick. How you doing, mate? Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. 2 seconds till we get going. I'll talk you through the workout and get started on our chat because we're going to talk about bike fitting today, or bike fit related issues. And as I was putting together my notes for this evening, I realised very good. Just have an issue with my power. Sorry, just bear with me 1 second, guys. Trainer doesn't seem to be working very happily. Right, put it on Bluetooth instead, maybe. Yeah, no. This new UI for connecting your trainer is not good. It's way too confusing. Smart trainers. Sorry guys, bear with me 1 second. Then why does there no power? There we go. Okay, cool. Hopefully that's all sorted now. Apologies for that, guys. It was all working until the session started. So yeah, apologies. I think I had an issue last week, didn't I? Yeah, last week my rear mech wasn't working. Oh. Anyway, right, so tonight's workout, let's get through that quickly so you know what you're actually up to. We've got a fun session, so we are going to be working with some sort of race type simulation sort of reps, okay. Let's get the workout. So we've got our normal build over the course of 10 minutes. We then got some escalating fast pedaling effort, so you know we love a fast pedaling effort as an activation set. So first one is going to be 30 seconds at tempo, 8% of FTP, sort of 6 out of 10 effort. Then it's going to be 30 out FTP, 8 out of 10 effort, and then 30 seconds at sort of a VO2 power around 115% of FTP. Then we're going to cruise for a bit, for about 5 minutes. It's good, so we can have a bit more time to get through the bike fit chat. And then basically we've got 4 rounds of quite horrible efforts. They're not very long though. So it's one of those sessions where the efforts are horrible, but overall, we're actually not on the pedals that much. So I'll walk you through. So you've got a 30-second anaerobic effort at around 175%. This is all erg mode off once we get to these efforts, by the way. I'll remind you, don't worry. This is definitely one of these sessions where we want to go on feel, and I'm not actually super bothered about power. Well, I am bothered, but about how strict I am. So yeah, it'll be starting off each effort with a 30-second anaerobic effort, 2 minutes at VO2 max effort around 115% of FTP, before we then just sprint for 10. Okay, you've got 4 rounds of that basically. So quite simple. Basically this session is all about sort of stimulating those gruesome efforts you have to do in a race. You know, we can all think of examples, I'm sure, where you have to go around aerobic to chase a wheel or something, accelerate out of a corner, but someone's attacking. So you have to hold the power high, and then, you know, maybe you're getting within 5 meters or so of the back wheel, and then you just have to add out a last little effort to get on. Or if we're thinking about the last rep, that last little effort to win, hopefully. I don't know why I keep looking over there, my camera's there. So yeah, that's what we're about this evening. That's the workout. Alright, just 1 second. Again, I'm just getting something up on my screen. Let's just get my notes up. So let's get straight into the bike fit chat, shall we? Because it's actually, as I said earlier, it actually turned, when I was putting my notes together, it looks actually quite a long chat. We can talk for ages, basically. There's a few kind of key things that I really want to get across. And basically my idea, my goal with this bike fit chat is to chat about bike fit issues, isn't to sort of enable you to do all your own fit, etc. It's more just to highlight a few common issues, just give you a little bit of knowledge so that you can avoid some of the common pitfalls. Probably more realistically, so you can just pick up on stuff and help you kind of filter out potential issues, or, you know, just, you know, recognize when something is a bike fit issue rather than, you know, random injury. So yeah, it's mostly just to help diagnose and hopefully just avoid pain and discomfort, because, you know, you should all be comfortable on your bike, unless you've got some sort of mechanical issue or just an injury. Otherwise, yeah, you should be comfortable on your bike. Okay, and there's a couple of factors that can feed into our sort of analysis, our diagnoses. The key one for any kind of bike fit, regardless of how racy you want to make it, is flexibility and mobility. And this is why when we do our screenings and stuff, you know, we're almost always with some sort of flexibility and mobility point for our athletes, because part of being comfortable on a bike is about being able to hold a position that's efficient. So how flexible you are in terms of handlebar position, saddle height, how close of a hip angle you can hold, the drop from the saddle to the bars. Obviously, it's particularly limiting if you've got poor mobility when it comes to getting fitted for a TT bike. So, for instance, I think I mentioned this already, but I recently discovered when I was tinkering with my own fit and using my guy over in Amsham, I discovered that I have a really tight quadratus lumborum on my right side, the muscle in your sort of side of your back, and it was affecting how I was sitting on the saddle. And previously I've been told, you know, I need shims, I need custom footbeds, blah blah blah. I didn't. Just needed to be able to sit on my saddle properly, but I had a sort of a hip hike because the muscle was just too tense to allow my hips and my pelvis to sit flat. So that's just a classic example and a personal example of how inflexibility and got very good mobility, but this one thing, this one muscle was causing me trouble, and I was, you know, did also have to learn my saddle a little bit, but it's a big cause in why I was getting back pain in cyclocross. And the reason that's coming out is because cyclocross is such a high torque, low cadence sport. It really leverages into your lower back, and so my QL was working overtime. Anyway, another thing that's important is your core stability, your core conditioning. be a massive limiter when it comes to the aerodynamics of your position and your ability to maintain that. So you remember our chat a couple of weeks ago about aerodynamics and drag and what happens to your wake and turbulence if you move around a lot. If you've got cracked core or you're uncomfortable on your bike, you'll move around a lot, and that's all this sort of stuff. And you'll see the cracked time trialists. Sorry, that's really unfair. they're pro cyclists, but they're less good time trialists in the pro peloton. You'll see them move around a lot, and their head is moving around a lot, and that's all creating extra drag. Right, so come back to the first fast pedaling effort. This one is just tempo. So you spin your legs up, get cadence above 100 RPM, and then try and relax. So draw the shoulders down. I immediately went into a pin position. Just relax. Last 10 seconds. Okay, good stuff. Bear with me 1 second, just got to open the door. It's a bit of an annoying time of year because it's too cold to start the door open and the fan on. But then as soon as you get a bit of a puff on, you need everything wide open. And also this jersey's too thick. But I need to wear something, don't I? Okay, so I'll continue just with the bike fit chat once we got through these fast pedaling efforts. The next one, remember we're going up to FTP, 100% of FTP, so an 8 out of 10 effort. So try and stay relaxed now. Get ready to go in 10 seconds. Okay, spin up. That's high powered, this one. Try and relax as you're doing it. Try and keep your bum planted. 20 seconds. Cadence though, well over 100 RPM. Halfway. Last 2 seconds. Okay, relax. Back down to about, what would that be? 5% FTP, 50% FTP, easy riding basically. Okay, so one more of those, then we'll have a nice cruise for about 6 minutes. And I'll try and get as much of the bike fit chat done. But we have got long recovery sectors, I should have mentioned that, between each of these anaerobic VO2 sprint sections. We've got 6 minutes of recovery, so plenty of time for me to talk at you. And I was going to do a little bit of chat about my views on time trial bikes or road bikes for triathlon, but I think we'll save that for another time. Yes. By some miracle, we have enough time. Okay, last 2 seconds. Last fast pedaling effort, 150% of FTP. Here we go. Ready to spin out the legs now. Try and stay relaxed. Gently bouncing on the saddle. 20. 10. Well done. Spinning up. Right then, so let's crack on. So flexibility, mobility, and core stability and conditioning are for me the two kind of primary factors outside of the actual fitting process that you can control. Also, there's strength, inherent strength, in terms of power generation, muscular balance, and just FYI, if you have dual-sided power feedback, and you've got quite a big imbalance, and for me an imbalance is more than 10%, that's probably a fit issue rather than a muscular balance issue, okay? And then also injury history and just what your goals are, what type of race you're doing, racing versus ultra endurance sort of thing. Okay, so 5 seconds in, we're just going up to zone 2. I'm just going to cruise for 5 minutes. So there's some kind of key elements of bike setup which is probably quite important to be familiar with before we carry on the chat. So in terms of kind of your frame and geometry, stack and reach are important. So stack is the height. Let me just, I can't see it here, you guys can even see me. But the stack is kind of like what's underneath the headset, the bit that holds up the handlebars. Okay, so basically how high the handlebars are, and then the reach is just as it sounds, how far you have to reach for the shifters. Okay, and this is really important for posture and can be a really big cause of neck issues when you get it wrong. So one sort of tester for me, I always think about is if you cannot easily relax your shoulders down. So if you can't feel your shoulder blades coming down, being able to move down and just sort of relax in that position, then for me, your stack or your reach is not correct. You should be able to relax completely in your upper body. If you find more often than not, you're pinned with straight arms and your shoulders are near your ears, there's something not right there. You should be able to just let them fall down. Don't get me wrong, when you're working hard, you will do that a little bit, and you just got to keep reminding yourself to relax, but you should be able to relax in the first place, basically. Okay, then you got the top tube length. Okay, top tube is the bar running between the seat posts, basically the top bit of metal or carbon, depending on your bike, and that affects the distance of how far away the handlebars are and kind of where you sit relative to the bottom bracket, etc. Then seat tube angle. So basically imagine the metal or carbon that goes down from your seat. The angle of that influences your hips, how you can produce power. So basically, there's a big difference between a road bike and a time trial bike as to what that seat post angle might be like. And so the point I just want to make there is, if you get yourself a TT bike, you can't just adopt the same saddle height as you have for your road bike, because your position relative to the bottom bracket and the pedal, the cranks, etc. will be completely different, and probably actually quite significant, quite different as well. It's not by a small difference. So when it comes to saddle position, that's really important for determining your position relative to the bottom bracket. So if you don't know, the bottom bracket is basically where the pedals and the cranks spin around. That sort of circular section at the bottom and middle of the bike. Okay? And your saddle height can affect knee extension and pedaling efficiency. So, for instance, having too low of a saddle is a really common issue, really common cause of frontal knee pain, anterior knee pain. Okay, so that's what I'm doing at the moment, because I fiddled with my setup and I got it wrong. And I rode like that for a couple of weeks, and then boom, my patella started getting angry, and I changed my setup back immediately. But once you kind of trigger soft tissue, fortunately it then takes ages to calm down again. Now, I've been incredibly sensible, know all the tricks of the trade, but I still know it's going to take probably another few weeks before it calms down again. But if you get that pain in the front of your knee, often the saddle's too low, and then your position, your saddle, how far forward or back it is, that will impact your position of your knee relative to the pedal spindle, basically your knee relative to your foot, and that can make a difference for knee pain or otherwise as well. So if you're too far forwards, again, you start to get pain in the front of your knee. And then saddle tilt, for me, like, I think saddle tilt it is a real messy one. For me, like, it should just be flat. That gives you a good basis. Right then, A. So one thing I've got to say is quickly, erg mode should be off. Okay, don't worry if you haven't done it just yet. Like for instance, my doodah, it's struggling. Why is it not coming up? There we go, finally. And I've not got cadence. So you want to change that to F for fixed. Okay? So we're up to an anaerobic effort and leave erg mode off for the rest of the session. For another few seconds. Oh, erg mode's not coming up, it's on Bluetooth. Okay, then VO2. Okay, carry on, guys. Keep going.
I got that flow, I got that swag, I got that that your mama wish she had.
Okay, so still at VO2 level now.
So if you want that glow, you better relax.
Okay, keep going.
I got that flow, I got that swag, I got that that your mama wish she had. I take it slow, but somehow you still last. So if you want that glow, you better relax.
Okay, carry on, you're near there, guys. Another 30 odd seconds, then finishing off with a 10-second full gas effort. Okay, last 10, and then we kick. Okay, off we go.
I got that flow, I got that swag, I got that
Last 2 seconds. 2, 1. Okay, well done.
so if you want that glow,
Just relax. Get your breath back. Don't worry too much about power for now. Just get your breath back. And then bring your cadence back above 80 RPM. Well done, guys. So, talk about saddle position. Handlebar stem setup. Handlebar width. It's the real personal one. But generally speaking, it should match your shoulder width roughly. For me, the factory default bars they put on road bikes are always way too wide. It's just ridiculous. Every single time, I rarely buy bikes, but every time I bought a road bike, I've always had to change the width of the handlebars. It's always been way too wide. I mean, these are old bars. My setup here is probably too wide. So that's something to think about. Bars aren't expensive, particularly if you're talking alloy ones. But yeah, the move aerodynamics wise is very much the narrow aero bars, but just make sure they're roughly similar sort of width to your shoulders and not out like this. Okay. The drop, by the way, as I said earlier, it's the difference between the saddle and the tops of the handlebars. Now, previous aerodynamic thinking was about having an absolutely slam stem, having a bigger drop as possible, but that's not always the way to go, because aerodynamically, it's not as effective as once thought. Actually, modern aerodynamic thinking is about getting narrow and reducing your frontal profile, and then thinking about how you guide the air around that frontal profile. So, for instance, in triathlon, when they're all shoving bottles down the front of their shirts, what that was about closing the gap a little bit between kind of basically your chin and your hands, and then sort of splitting the air and sort of directing it around the outside of your body. So drop and slamming the stem isn't everything. You will see, I was having a chat with some of my mates today about some of the pro bikes this year, and Pog, for instance, his bike, he's got a massive drop, and then his bars have actually got like an elevated stem almost, like one of those aero stems. And basically, what that's about is getting low, but then using sections of the bars to basically create like almost like that bottle effect, having the bottle down the front of your shirt, closing that gap essentially. So it's not all about drop. That isn't going to make you more aerodynamic as much as you think, but it will drastically decrease your comfort levels. So there's a real balance to be struck. And in terms of stem length and angle, that can impact basically how you sit on the saddle. And that's a really not one I know a tremendous amount about, basically. Only that, as a default, you want to be able to sit on the back of the saddle comfortably. And then angle of shifters does something similar. And for me, that's a really disproportionately important one. The angle of your shifters and the angle of your bars is massive for impacting your reach. And for me, it's always one I have to do a lot of work on in order to find comfort sitting on the back of the saddle. So for years and years, I used to really like having quite angled down handlebars so I could just rest my hands and I could get like a really aero position. But it was impacting how I was sitting on the saddle, and how easy it was for me to relax. So I've changed that quite recently, and I'm moving to more aero handlebars so my hands can sit more comfortably on the outside of them. And so you'll see the angle of shifter just shifted in. That's for aerodynamics, but also for comfort, because you think about normal shifters, it's quite an aggressive flexion in your wrists, and really when you want to keep your wrists neutral. And so a lot of the thinking now is about angling the shifters in so that your wrist can just sit a bit flatter. And so if you get kind of numb hands or wrist pain, it's an element to think about basically. And then just the final kind of component factor, cleat and pedal position. Now the 4.5 position will determine your foot's alignment over the pedal axle. I'll talk about that a little bit in the next break. And then cleat angle and rotation encourages kind of how your knee moves, as does the float, etc. Really you want it straight. So again, like a flat saddle, it gives you a good default position, and then you can tinker ever so slightly if you need to. So ankle mobility will affect how comfortable a perfectly straight cleat angle is. Right then, I'm not going to miss it this time. So let's get round 2, starting off, excuse me, with that 30-second anaerobic. Ready? Here we go. So anaerobic for the first 30 seconds.
Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and down, elevator up, down,
10.
up, down, yeah, up, down, up, and down, elevator up, and down, up, and down, up, and
Okay. Then easing off to VO2 max level. We're here for 2 minutes, so get relaxed in the shoulders. Bring me back, 90 seconds at this effort. Okay, last minute. That VO2 effort.
This shit hot.
Last 45. Stay on it. All right, last 30 then. Twenty. Last 10 then. Then we kick. Ready? Okay, come on then. 10 seconds sprint. Finish it off. 3, 2, 1. And relax. Hold on, guys. Just spin up. Hold on. So, 6 minutes of recovery now. Get your breath back. Start spinning out the legs. Feel the fluids as well. Make sure you're getting a little bit in. Not drink too much, otherwise it'll sit in your stomach. And then when you're going anaerobic, it might make a reappearance. So I hope you got an electrolyte drink after our pre-loading chat last week. So we talked about components, parts of the bike to shift. So a couple of specifics that I wanted to cover, namely optimal knee and hip angles. So your knee angle, basically we're talking about your position, the angle in your knee when your pedals is at 90, when your crank is at 90, and then when the pedal is at 180. So what you want is something, and it's really broad and a super specific thing, but something in the range of 140 to 150 degree angle at the bottom of the pedal stroke. But that's a really individual one, and on a bike fitters talk within that range more specifically than others. So I'm not going to cover that too much, but basically if your knee angle is greater than 150 degrees, it suggests your saddle's too high, and that can cause overextension of the hamstrings. You can start to rock, and yeah, get a bit of hamstring discomfort. They'll probably just fatigue too quickly, or disproportionate quickly. And then if you've got too low of a saddle, so the angle will be less than 140 degrees, then that can basically means your quads will fatigue too quickly. So if you already notice when you're doing hard efforts like this, either your quads at the front of your thigh or your hamstrings at the back, they fatigue really quickly, then yeah, it might be a saddle height issue going on there with an incorrect knee angle. Okay, there is a really useful general saddle height finder which I use a lot when I go abroad and I'm using a random bike. So what you do is, in order to find your like a very rough saddle height, you stand against the wall, you put a book between your thighs right up into your crotch, and then you kind of step over the book, leaving it where it was, and then you mark on the wall in pencil the top of the book. Then you can measure what the height from the floor to the top of the book, and if you multiply that by 0.885, then it will give you a rough saddle height from the bottom bracket to the top of the saddle. It's not perfect, but it'll hopefully get you in the right ballpark. Don't worry, I don't expect you to remember that bit. If it's something you want reminding of, there's a TikTok video I keep saved, and probably one I can just make myself, but I can send that to to anyone. But that's a really useful one when you're going abroad or whatever and you're using a strange bike. And then the second thing is optimal hip angle. So a closed hip angle is basically when you're down like this, and the hip angle basically is kind of determines how close your chest, your stomach gets to your thighs. And when you close that angle, it can get harder to produce power. And so like a general kind of rough rule is when the pedal's at the top of the pedal stroke, you want sort of a 50 to 55 degree angle, and when it's at the bottom, somewhere between 100 and 115 hip angle when the pedal's at the bottom stroke. Yeah, if the hip angle's too small, it can cause hip impingement, basically pain in your hip, and just basically you'll just won't be able to produce power very well. Basically, that's the first thing you'll notice. You need to be doing it for a long time before you get hip impingement, in theory at least. But yeah, you'll just feel devoid of power basically. Try and try this. We do, and triathletes, we tend to have a more closed hip angle when you're on the aero bars, and so core stability and flexibility and spending time in that position is absolutely crucial. And then if you're doing long rides, you probably want to open up that hip angle, generate a bit more power and a bit more comfort if you're on a roadie. So there we go. Just a little bit more bike chat. I've got 30 seconds till we go again. So I'll let you guys focus and get ready for it. So you know the drill. We're halfway through, 2 more rounds. We're going to start off anaerobic, down to VO2 for 2 minutes, and then kick for 10 seconds. So just bring the power up a little bit just so you're not on a standing start. Get ready to go in 10. Okay, here we go. So going anaerobic. Thirty seconds. 10. Okay, easing off a bit. And just holding for 2 minutes. Try and have a nice high cadence. Well above 90, above 100 if you can. Nine seconds. Then we kick. Enough on a minute to go. Stay strong. Less than a minute, and then we kick. This is the penultimate effort, guys. Stay strong. 45. And 30 to go. Continue there. Okay, 10 seconds, then we kick. 5, 3, 2, 1. Okay, come on. 5 seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Come on, guys. Spinning up. Just one more round to go. Plenty of recovery though. So, in this last recovery, I just wanted to cover a couple of sort of individual issues. One is particularly common on TT bikes. If you're riding a TT bike a lot and you're finding that you're going to bed and then waking up the next day and your neck is gone, okay, that's quite a common one. And one of the reasons for that is how far away your elbows are in front of your shoulder. So when you're doing that in that area position, if your elbows aren't underneath your shoulders and they're out front, like you'll see the pros doing this a lot, okay? But it's because they can. And because their Ironman leg is probably half the length of most of us, okay? When you hold that area position with your hands and your elbows forward of your shoulders, you can see it, probably, you might not be able to see it, but immediately my upper traps are on fire. We're all fired up. And you hold that position for too long and the upper traps will feed into your neck, and just the whole thing just gets very uncomfortable. So when you're in your TT position, yes, if you're an experienced athlete, well conditioned, good mobility, and your traps aren't firing straight away when you move your elbows forwards, and to get your hands in front of your face again to kind of break the air and close that gap between kind of the bars in your face or whatever, then yeah, you can do that. But for me, the default position for most triathletes is your shoulder blades should be pretty much directly over your elbow. Because you think about, you're doing a plank, you know, the body saw plank that we often do, where you're in the plank position and then you're shifting forwards, back, etc. Like when you shift backwards, like you cannot hold that position for very long. And you think about, you're transposing that position onto a TT bike, your core is firing to hold that position, your traps are fired, like it's not going to last. So it's a really important one for those with time trial bikes. Your pad position is really important. If you're doing a really short TT, 10-mile TT, get those arms towards, get the hands above the face, get aero and go for it for a 20-30 minute effort. But for a triathlete, you've got to run afterwards, and if you're doing long distance, you may have to hold that position for a long time. It's just not worth it, guys, I promise you, because any bike related issues will feed into the run, okay? Any discomfort you're feeling, your body will be compensating elsewhere. And so yes, the pain might go away when you get off the bike, but somewhere else will be super tense, just waiting to get angry. So that's just a more specific point for time trial bikes. The other point I was going to say was, what's the other thing? I was going to say, numb feet. That's one of the questions I often get asked. And one of the most common causes of numb feet is having your shoes done up too tight. So you'll see, I'm always fiddling with my shoes. I am out on the road as well, because when it's nice and easy and flat, and I'm sort of tapping along, I'll have my shoes quite loose. And then when it gets to serious stuff, gets to hills or whatever, these types of efforts, I'll do them up. But yeah, it's just one thing to be mindful of. The other reason why you might get numb feet is probably not fit related either. It's probably because you're riding too heavy of a gear at too low of a cadence. So high torque, low cadence, low leg speed. And that's one of the reasons why I'm always on at you guys about keeping your cadence above 80 RPM, between 80 and 100 generally. And it's a smaller reason. It is just more efficient pedaling like that. But also, we don't want you kind of regularly getting numb feet. So if you're on a long ride and you're finding that you're getting numb feet quite quickly, if you're out for a 4 or 5 hour ride, most things will probably start to ache a little bit, if that's not your norm. But if your rides aren't crazy long at the moment and you're getting numb feet, it might be that your shoes are done up too tight for too long, or you're riding too heavy of a gear or your cadence is too low, basically. I think I'll leave that for now. We've got another rest coming up after this final round of these horrible efforts. I feel all over the place this evening. My legs don't feel connected to my body. I don't know what's going on with me, but hopefully this last round, I think it's all a bit discombobulating with the turbo trainer not connecting properly. But anyway, so 10 seconds or so, and then we go for the final round. 30 seconds anaerobic, 2 minutes VO2, 10 seconds sprint. Ready? Here we go. Anaerobic for the first 30. $15 seconds. 10. Okay, then easing off to a VO2 level, trying to keep the cadence high. Up on 90 seconds to go. Come on, guys. Let's finish this off. Not far off the final minute. Last effort of the evening, guys. Here we go then, 60 seconds. $45. There, keep pushing. $30. Keep pushing, keep pushing. 15, then we go. Last kick coming up. In 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go, 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Well done, guys. Good out. Good done. Woo. Spin out, guys. Get your breath back. Get the fluids back on board. That's hard work done. Just relax. Okay, so 5 minutes ago, I'm just going to try and summarise everything I talked about because it was all a bit bitty there. I had hoped to do most of the talking in the warm-up, but I'm sticking around. So the key factors that you can control within yourself in terms of bike fit are your flexibility and mobility, your core stability, and then your strength and muscular balance, and then of course kind of any injuries you got. And obviously you can only control that to a limited extent. In terms of the geometry and the components of the bike, your stack is basically how many spaces underneath your headset, underneath the handlebars, how far the handlebars are away from the top of the frame. Your reach is how far you're having to reach. And those can be common causes of neck pain if they're not right. Next up is the top tube, the length of the bar running across the top of the bike. A really important area for TT bikes. TT bikes are very individual. It might be a super nice bike, but if the top tube is too long, if the frame is too big for you, you might have to go for a different bike. Really recommend getting advice on TT bikes from a bike fitter before you purchase. Steep tube angle, obviously very different between a road bike, mountain bike, TT bike, and that influences how you produce power and your hip angle. Saddle position, in terms of height, can impact your knees in particular. If it's too low, generally you might get pain in the front of your knee, like I'm having to deal with at the moment because of my stupid decision making. The position of the saddle fore and aft, okay, that sort of dictates how you sit relative to the bottom bracket and the pedals. And then tilt, for me, it should be flat, unless you've got a particular reason why you're lacking your inability to engage glutes, whatever. That's a weird personal thing, but for me, the default should be flat. And I actually, this is probably not the right thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. It actually annoys me that you can even change the angle of the saddle. Like, that should be something that you can buy as an adaptation. The default should be flat, because the amount of times I've dicked around these stupid saddles trying to move them fore and aft, and then you also impact the angle of the saddle because it's got a double clamp. Bloody stupid. I just got disproportionately angry just there. I don't know why. It's really because that's one of the things I've been dicking around with so much with my fit. Anyway, moving on. The handlebars and stem, the width, again, default bars you get with a road bike tend to be just way too wide for most people. Like, I don't know the reason why they sell them, but they do. The drop and reach, the drop between the saddle and the handlebars used to be bigger the drop, the better for aerodynamics, but comes at a real cost when it comes to comfort. And actually, modern thinking is more about getting narrow. Has more of an effect than getting as low as you can at the front. Cleat position, generally speaking, you want the cleat straight as your default. And then if you get any discomfort, if you have poor ankle mobility, for example, you can struggle to hold a perfectly straight cleat, and you might have to angle it slightly inwards, so your ankle can kind of roll around the outside a little bit. But I would start perfectly straight, and then if something's not right, you can change it. Fore and aft position, I didn't talk much about fore and aft position. The current sort of trend is to have the cleat as far back as you can, really, particularly for triathletes, because it saves your calves a little bit more, which is obviously a very important running muscle. But that seems to be the trend in the pro cycling peloton as well. I can't remember what it was I was watching, but that generally seems to be the trend, to put the cleat quite far back. And it's honestly, you might as well, and then you can shift it forward if it feels weird, particularly if you're a triathlete. And then lastly, we were talking about optimal hip and knee angles. So for your knee, full extension at the bottom of the pedal stroke, you want about 140 to 150 degrees in the knee. Again, really individual setup, but if you're above 150, then your saddle's probably too high and your hamstrings might fatigue too quickly. Too low, below 140, and you'll overload the quadriceps. I told you about that general saddle height finder. I can send you the video, but it's really quick and easy, and it works for comfort levels. It's not going to be your optimal position, but it'll at least mean hopefully you're comfortable. And then finally, see the ride just finished off very quickly. Your hip angle, when your foot is at the bottom of the pedal straight, you want somewhere between 100 and 115 degrees in that hip. Too close, and you'll restrict your power production. You might get hip impingement as well, but generally most people don't ride with too close of a hip angle. It's only really when you're on a TT bike that you have a really close hip angle. But yeah, it will restrict your power production. And so there's a real balance between getting aero, getting low, getting narrow, and then actually be able to produce power. And just remember, guys, who are triathletes, You are going to have to run afterwards, so you got to be sensible with your accommodations. I have made that mistake and had my hamstrings explode. So yeah. So guys, anyone got any questions on Bike Fit? I know that was a pretty brutal session. Apologies to all the tech issues at the start. Like, it's so frustrating running these sessions sometimes because I have everything set up like half an hour in advance and everything's running fine, and then suddenly the workout starts and things stop working. Incredibly frustrating. But yeah, sorry guys, I'll stick around if anyone's got any questions. Otherwise, go get yourself some food. I'm laughing because the only response was, that was brutal, no questions. Cheers guys.